right? So maybe the whole thing was playing with his head. You know what men are like. You know what I mean? In 2018, the family court made an order for Alan to pay his wife 1.4 million, 440,000 more than he had offered. So he must have offered her a million or 960,000 or something. And they've said, no, you've got to add another 440,000 on top of that, making 1.4 million. A lot of dollars, right? The judge also required him to make regular payments to Caroline amounting to £22,000 a year until he had both paid the lump sum with any interest accruing and given her a get. So he's put a condition on it. So this is where the coercion comes in. So it's not a free will get, which is problematic, which we'll find out why. I don't know why. But Mr. Moher appealed, arguing, among other things, that tying payments to the get was in effect forcing his hand, which would render any get invalid in Jewish law. Right. So this is the secular court forcing him to actually give a lump sum plus monthly payments until he's given a get. And he said, well, it's not a free will get then, is it? That was his argument. The Dafka has gone back to the court and says, no, you're breaking God's law. I can't do it. My nefesh won't allow me. It's the Dafka, right? A Dafka is somebody that if you say it's black, he's got to say it's the white. He'll argue the opposite case, right? The appeal court, however, ruled against him in 2019, the year when the couple were finally divorced under civil law. So the civic law went through. The civil case, the civil divorce. The civic divorce, rather. The presiding judge, Mr. Justice Moylan, noted the previous... Moylan is an Irish name, isn't it? No, he probably doesn't understand it all, you know what I mean? Noted the previous view of the family court and that the case had become far more complex than it need have been, largely due to the failures of the husband to provide adequate disclosure and his lack of adherence to court orders. Well, he's offered 960 and they're telling him he's got to give more, and he's like, who are you to tell me what I've got to give? I'd be like that. As for the get, he noted that under legislation introduced in 2002, this is in the secular courts, the courts had the power to delay a civil divorce until a religious divorce was arranged. So they can say, we're not going to give a civil divorce until you do the religious divorce. That would leave both parties free to remarry. It would under the civic. It could have been. If they'd have said, right, first give them a religious divorce, then we'll give you a civic divorce, then you're free to marry. But I think they've got the civil divorce done first, and the get is the religious divorce hasn't come through, so she can't remarry. Neither can he, right? In the same way, in this case, the husband is not being compelled to grant a get. In the same way, in this case, the husband is not being compelled to grant a get, Lord Justice Moylan said. How he responds to the order is a matter for him. The court order provides only that until he grants a get, he has to pay periodical payments to his wife. So they're saying that he has to pay money to his wife until he gives a get. But he'd probably have to pay after the get as well. Do you know what I mean? So, but the Manchester Beth Din took a different view. So the top lads in Manchester, no, you can't do that. It goes against halacha. According to a witness statement from its head, Diane Yehuda Steiner, in October 2021, which was prepared for the impending criminal case, the Beth Din concluded the £22,000 a year payments were coercive and punitive in nature and intended to force a get, which I suppose it was. They're quite right. No, you're putting a condition on this outcome. You're forcing his hand. And that's problematic from the rabbi's point of view. You've got the top lads. They know what they're talking about. They know halacha. You can't tell them what halacha is. It's written down in the Shulchan Aruch. The court's order made it problematic for Mr. Moher to give a get in any Beth Din. The Dayan said. The Dayan is the judge, the top judge. The Dayan is the man. You've got the rabbis, then you've got Dayans above them. The Dayan is like, they operate they're judges. The Dayan is a judge, right? They're rabbis as well. So a rabbi gets promoted to a judge. I think, they get drawn up into the court system. The court order made it problematic for Mr. Moher to give a get in any Beth Din, the Dayan said. The Manchester Beth Din would not categorise Mr. Mohair at this stage as a get refuser. They wouldn't. No, 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 we ain't doing it. That's this is what his ex-wife. The MBD, the Manchester Beth Din, was not the only rabbinical court involved. Another one gets involved. Mrs. Mohair moved to London, right, and the Federation of Synagogues Beth Din took over. So now there's the feds, right? They're different. They're even more strict. They're ultra strict. I'm not saying that the Beth Din in Manchester is less strict, but the feds, right? Yeah, I am. I'm saying they're strict. It's more strict. In an email to Mr. Mohair's solicitor last year, the registrar of the Federation Beth Din, Rabbi Alan Lewis, summarised its position. If a husband is coerced into giving a get, he explained, the divorce is considered to have been done under duress and is completely invalid as a matter of Jewish law. It's invalid. If the Shulchan Aruch says it's invalid, it's invalid. It's invalid. You ain't doing. You can't know what. No, only God can do it. However, there were some circumstances in which Jewish law allows for a husband to be compelled to give a get. To determine that, the Beth Din would need to investigate and hear both parties, right? So they went off and did this investigation. A husband could be required to continue to make payments until he gives a get in some circumstances. But again, that would need a hearing at the Beth Din, Rabbi Lewis explained. While the Beth Din had offered a hearing, he said, Mrs. Moher had declined it. She's a dafka. Saying she had been advised there was no point attending the Beth Din because Mr. Moher is not yet prepared to give a get. See how it's the advice behind you see, it's like when somebody's getting divorced, who are the people that make the most money? The lawyers, right? Well, the rabbis are like the lawyers, but I'm not saying that they're getting paid for their services, and I'm not saying that one's trying to outdo the other. I'm just saying that their advice that they give them, they provide is based on their interpretation of what the law says and the strategies that they should employ in order to navigate the red lines that are all over the place. Because the last thing they want is the couple to be crossing red lines. And if you're an Orthodox Jew, you don't want to be crossing red lines. So you want to navigate it and do it right. Right? That's what it's about. And this is what makes it so wonderful to watch. Because the best minds in the Jewish world are behind it. You know what I mean? For sure, they would have been on the phone to taking counsel from top rabbis in Israel and America as well. For sure, there would have been, what's the position? What's your view? And what? Because it's an important business, man. I'm telling you, when you're dealing with godly matters, commandments from God that you shall not and you will do that. You will do this and you will not do that. Right? They're red lines. They're mitzvahs. They're commandments, and they will not break the commandments wherever they can avoid it. They will. It's key. It's key. So let's progress, because I digress. A husband could be required to continue to make payments until he gives a get in some circumstances, but again, that would need a hearing at the Beth Din, Rabbi Lewis explained. While the Beth Din had offered a hearing, he said, Mrs. Moher had declined it, saying she had been advised there was no point attending the Beth Din because Mr. Moher is not yet prepared to give a get. He's not prepared to give a get. Don't go. She's not prepared. However, the Mohers had appeared close to settling their differences because at one point a get ceremony was arranged at the Federation, only to fall through at the last minute. Last summer, Mr. Moher wrote to the Federation to ask it to sort out a get in the wake of a private prosecution launched against him by Mrs. Moher. So he must have troubled him a bit, right? That is, this guy, I don't want it over. I don't want to be doing all this. He's probably thinking to himself, right, I just want to give her a get. But I don't want to have to pay 1.4 million. What have I got to give her 1.4 million? I can now give her 995,000. She accepted that. What's he got to do with that? Leave him over there. Who's Lamille interfering? Telling me I've got to give 1.4 million. 1.4, it's 440,000. That's a lot of money, right? To get a nice house in Prestwich up there for 440,000. However, the Mohers had appeared close to settling their differences because at one point a get ceremony was arranged at the Federation, only to fall through at the last minute. Last summer, Mr. Moher wrote to the Federation to ask it to sort out a get in the wake of a private prosecution launched against him by Mrs. Moher. But Rabbi Lewis responded that since criminal proceedings had begun before any hearing at the Beth Din to decide whether Mr. Moher should be compelled to give a get, your consent to give a get must be presumed to be given under duress, something which invalidates any get that would be given. So the problem was that the secular courts had put conditions on his actions, forcing his hand, and according to the Beth Din, that's a problem. In other words, you've got to go and undo those conditions, that directive, that ruling, in order for him then to make a free will decision. It's about your free will, right? So, but the Rabbi Lewis responded that since criminal... Okay, we've read that. So, the Federation could only suggest that he return to the Beth Din once the proceedings in your case are concluded. During the sentencing hearing at Southwark earlier this month, Mrs. Moher's lawyers referred to an offer Mr. Moher had made at one stage to grant her a get if she accepted $700,000 or $780,000 without the get, right? So he'd put two offers. Mr. Moher's counsel, Geoffrey Israel, told the court that it was unfortunately common for the granting of a get to be used as a negotiating chip. So it's about settlement, isn't it? Howard Moher, who lives in the USA, that's the brother, I think, offered an explanation for his brother's action here. The £780,000 was the outstanding amount he owed to Mrs. Moher at the time. Just under $80,000 of that related to the payments he had all been ordered to make by the family court until the get was given. So he'd basically advanced £80,000 of that 780. So that's why he was saying, you've had 80, now I'll give you 700, right? Was given, which he considered halachically problematic. If they were removed, so would the obstacle to a get. Alan Moher therefore proposed to his wife's representatives, his brother said, that if they weren't bothered by not getting the get, he would pay the 780,000. But if they wanted a get, he would pay 700,000, right? In other words, minus the £80,000 penalty. Howard Moher said it seemed reasonable to assume that if Caroline Moher's team had accepted the 700,000, they could have the family court order altered to reflect this, and the Beth Din would have had no reason not to grant the get. By this stage, Howard Moher added, his brother had started to think about life after the divorce, so he's starting to move on in his head. He met somebody, he's got to end the shidduch, and he's thinking, he met somebody and needed the get issue to be resolved too, if things were to move forward. The rabbis are coming, we've got a nice shidduch for you, right? And he's taken a look, he's taken a fancy, so if she likes him, he wants to move forward, quick, come on, I've got a chance to move on. I suppose that could have been going on with her as well. Where are we? She was resolved too. But Mrs. Moher's counsel, Anthony Metzer, told the Crown Court that they did not accept Mr. Moher had made any genuine effort to provide the get, notwithstanding any anticipated defence submissions, that the responsibility for his refusal to do so lies with any other Bate Din. That's the House of Judgments, the court, right? Excuse me the noise, I'll get these noises through. Mr. Moher, he said, had engineered a position where he may falsely claim to be under duress of the courts. He had also tried to put pressure on Mrs. Moher to drop the criminal charge, Mr. Metzer said. The Federation said it would not comment on individual private cases. Generally, though, the Beth Din will continue to advise and assist all those who turn to it, and to do its utmost to achieve the procurement of halachically valid get in even the most challenging of circumstances. I just don't know how to switch those doobies off, so please forgive me. The JC understands that Mrs. Moher's case is now under consideration of the London Beth Din. Shortly after her ex-husband's sentencing, on the steps of the court, she said that while she awaited her get, in his eyes he therefore has not relinquished his last remnant of control over me. I sincerely hope Alti will be able to let go of our past as I have. Present me with the get,